So our menu is working. We can click on the items and the routing gets set. One thing that's missing is there's no indication within the menu that we have a selected item. So let's add a little marker over on the right side of each item that'll show whether it's selected or not. We'll go into our PS menu folder and we'll take a look at the template for the PS menu item. We have our div that holds our icon and our label, and I'll add another icon below it. So let's take a look at this. We're adding an I element with a class of FA for Font Awesome. FA2X makes it twice the normal size, and the actual icon we're using is FA_left, which is just a pointer to the left. I'm also adding a class of PS Menu Active Indicator, which is a new class that we'll add to our CSS soon. I'm also adding an ngIf directive. The only time that we want to show this icon is if this is an active element. So we'll create this function called isActive. So first, let's add a rule for this class. I'll go to psmenu.css and I'll add it here. So we want this arrow to float to the right. That'll put it to the far right of the item. We'll set a light gray color, and we don't want a margin on the right. And just to align it, I had to experiment with the top margin, and 8 pixels works fine. So our CSS should be okay. Let's take a look at the markup again. We also have to create this isActive function to determine whether or not the marker should even show. In most cases it won't, because a menu can only have one active item at a time. So let's go to the item directive, and we'll take a look at our link function, and we can add the function we need in here. It'll be on our scope, and it's called isActive. Now, if you remember from the prior video, we're keeping track of the active element. It's in the controller for the menu. We're setting $scope active element equal to our active element. So as long as we have that, we can do a comparison in our menu item directive. So I'm just going to return element equals our controller, and we'll need a new function. We don't have access to the scope on the controller. We only have access to the controller itself. So we'll create a function called getActiveElement. So if we're active, this will return true. Otherwise, it'll return false. We'll go back to our menu controller, and we have setActiveElement, and we'll create a getter as well. I'll just return the scope active element. And let's try running it. I'll click dashboard, and we get our indicator to the right. I'll click on locations, and the indicator moves. So it looks like we're good to go. Everything's all set up, and a key tripping point is that when we're working on a custom directive and we're using the controller that's being required up here, we just don't have access to the scope. If we did, it would be a little bit simpler, but it's just a matter of calling a function directly on the controller to find something that's already in the scope. And then once we have this isActive function, we can simply use an ngIf to show or hide the indicator.